Reanimal, a game made by Tarzia Studios, who also made the first two Little Nightmares games, which I don't know that much about. I'd love to check them out sometime. The game released on the 13th of February to very positive reception, and I kind of like it. It's my favorite horror game release in years, and yes, I do mean that over Little Nightmares 3, but I think it's bullshit comparing the two games. I will not elaborate. Reanimal excelled in so many unique ways that I've never seen a horror game do since Little Nightmares 2. Although I don't know why the two games are so similar. What a mystery this is. I'm going to try to do a brief recap of everything that happens in the game, spoilers ahead by the way, and then I'm going to go over the story of the game and my interpretation of it. And then, honestly, I'm probably just going to give up and just talk about whatever the fuck. I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing this for me. Fuck you. And it's also just very nice for me to spew out my unfiltered and unorganized thoughts about my latest obsession. Bonus points if you guess what that is. Reanimal is just so phenomenal, it is shocking. It constantly changes up every bit of gameplay and throws new things at you with every chapter, staying fresh and never feeling stale. By the way, I'm not going to follow the exact same chapter structure that the game follows. The game, it more so focuses on how the location changes, but I'm going to focus more on how the main antagonist changes. The first chapter starts off with a short cutscene of a bunch of kids peering down a hole, but this girl looks down too, and then the screen distorts and cuts away shortly afterwards. I have a sneaking suspicion that something is wrong with this girl. You begin the game on the main character, the boy, stranded on a boat in the vast expanse of the ocean. You follow these lights and come across the girl. I'm not making these up, these are their names. And also, how rude of you to assume I'm lying. I have no reason to lie, asshole. She wakes up and her immediate instinct is to fight the boy. There's some short dialogue which is entirely new to this style of games. I don't want to say Little Nightmares-esque, since this game is completely separate from those games, but this is the best way for me to describe it, as we don't see dialogue in the Little Nightmares series at all. It is 22 degrees right now. I do not need to be wearing a jean jacket. It is so hot right now. The boy says,
I thought you...
The girl asks,
Where are the others?
Which instantly sets your task for the game. Find the others. You then have the camera zoom out to show you the scale of this place and ease you into this world. You travel through a forest, avoiding sea mines and taking in the sights, and then you arrive at a factory. After some simple puzzles, you find one of the others, Hood, who is waiting past a barred sewer pipe, as if they're trapped, but then they give you some ominous words of warning and walk off. So they were very capable of leaving the entire time, but they just chose not to, which is very funny to me. After reaching the surface, you see a slender figure strolling around with a suitcase who was briefly seen previously upon first entering the factory. If you follow him into this room, you'll find him climbing through this corpse sitting on the floor. I won't go through every one of these scenes since I'll do that later, and I do kind of want to get through this as quickly as I can, but this is the first true mood setter of the entire game. I love Little Nightmares and they've done some crazy shit, but I've never seen them go this far. So to have this happen within the first 20 minutes of the game, you get a good grasp at what the rest of the game is going to be like. Tarzia really were allowed to go like off the chains for this one. Like, Reanimal makes it seem like they were being held back in Little Nightmares, which is insane to think considering the stuff that they have in there. Reanimal just oozes creativity with these insane concepts that all blend together really well. Like, this game was made to subvert expectations and shock you. It lets you know from the get-go that they will be as grotesque as possible. They have no limits, and that is the first reason why I fell in love with this game. You then use this plunger to fish out this set of skin that was in the toilet, which is the second thing that made me fall in love with this game. You then use the key you got to open this door, and then you encounter 50 more of those skin things. And then once you've grabbed the wheel you need, they start moving and slithering down and chasing you, and it's so gross but so cool. You then use the wheel and leave. You then find Hood and escape this guy called the Sniffer. I don't know why he's called that. No correlation to anything he does. You traverse the forest and Hood is taken by the Sniffer immediately, and you see them walking into the cinema together. They could not have made these scenes any creepier. You complete some more simple puzzles and a bullshit sneaking sequence, and you're able to save Hood with a crowbar, which the boy keeps with him the entire game. Then, after escaping the Sniffer again, and then again on his bicycle, which is fucking terrifying, but also the funniest moment in the entire game, you go to a gas station to get gas for the Sniffer's ice cream van. One of the best chase sequences in the game. I will talk more about it later. And then you fill up the van with gas and you get to drive it, which is super fun until you run over the Sniffer and have to kill him. The van falls off a cliff right by the factory, and we get a cutscene of the well again from the start. Nobody looks down this time though. We instead see inside the well, where we're presented with a little lamb whose body twists and contorts to stare directly at us before everything turns red. Which is bad because red means evil. One hell of a first chapter, or monster if you're following my structure of the game, but it's insane how effectively they adjust you to the general atmosphere of the game and prepare you for what's to come. However, the sniffer does take up a third of the game, so if you went into this and finished this chapter expecting like 3 more segments that are equally as long, you will be disappointed. You get back on your boat and maneuver through some sea mines and these gross swimmers who you can kill after getting some spears, who are called boomers. I'm not calling them that though. You find one of your other friends, Bandage, who is immediately swooped up by a massive pelican. Like, shit, known them for 2 seconds, I'm already mourning. I do love how you get to watch the pelican fly all the way to the lighthouse. And this next bit, I'm reading directly off of the script. I didn't actually finish it. It reminds me of something. I'm writing this now, I'll remember later. I clearly didn't. I'm thinking Luncheon Kingdom from Mario Odyssey, but I'm watching it now and I have no fucking clue what possibly reminded me of that. I still don't know. Maybe I need a ghostwriter. Can somebody please help me? Anyways, I know what you're thinking. No, you can't just abandon Bandage. I know that because there's this thing called the Brook Horse if you try to leave, which blocks the way. But more importantly, that's fucking rude. Why would you consider abandoning Bandage in the first place? You climb up to this overwhelmingly beautiful scene. Like, I cannot describe it any other way. The music here is super menacing and sets in this ominous feeling that something's still wrong despite being the most beautiful scene in the entire game. Almost like a wolf in sheep's clothing environment. I wonder if the concept shows it later. Like, despite the warm and comforting atmosphere, it's completely juxtaposed by the music and that feeling that there's still something wrong. Once you get into the barn house, you squeeze past these pigs and find this big one in the back. Good idea. I wasn't considering that until you brought it up. You climb up to the lighthouse and find Bandage in a cage. No fucking clue how the pelican managed to put him in there. After you get him out, this alerts a pelican who was surprisingly really well disguised there, and another contender for the best chase scene commences because holy shit, all the seagulls flying around is such a good backdrop for this clumsy dumbass pelican slipping around trying to catch you. It makes it feel grand despite the foolishness of this stupid fucking pelican. Then the birds start dive bombing you, which is so funny but so intense. Then some of the pigs rush out and you leave the barn to burn with the pelicans and pigs still in there. Stop, now I feel bad. Afterwards we get this beautiful shot of the kids just sitting at this bus stop. Everything in this game is just so good. The girl starts to feel weird again and the light turns red. It cuts back to the lamb who is growing very quickly. Maybe I'm delusional, but I have a feeling that there's something wrong with this girl. But then you take the bus with this ghost driver who you can literally see through. It feels like Spirited Away, dude. They drop you off at the orphanage, which is fucking massive. You enter to see a bunch of these kids petrified and turned to stone. They're called Spider Kids, by the way. And I don't exactly know why. And if you notice through subtle storytelling, you'll see that the kids only turn to stone when in sunlight. You fight some that are actually alive and then see that they've taken your last friend, Bucket. You then stumble into the next room where some of the kids are lowering this pig into a pit, who is then grabbed and pulled down by this monster. After you beat some more of the kids up, one segment of which was entirely optional, which I didn't know, so me and my friend were kind of just like brute forcing it for about 20 minutes. You then run into them, lowering Bucket into that pit. So you tried to save him, but fuck, it was a trap, dude. Also, these kids are brutal at like knocking you out. They're so rough. What the fuck? Invincible fight scene, dude. You're now tied together in the pit with this monster who rears its head every now and then, and Bucket lets down this plank for you to cross. Another thing that took me and my friend way too long to realize, we tried jumping over the pit multiple times before deciding to, I don't know, wait an extra 5 fucking seconds. Jump. The thing about this game is, it makes you think. You need to be smart. And fearless too. That's why Bucket is the goat. You then have to run away from the monster called the Mother because it's the mother of all these spider kids. That name still doesn't make any sense. It also eats Bucket because any bonding time would mean maybe a little bit of joy, and you can't have that. Fun fact, Tazio shot anyone in their studio who smiled. After getting chased down again, you have to fight the Mother and dodge the kids' spears. Then once you've defeated the Mother, you have to walk inside her and save Bucket. Ew. Ew. You then find vehicles outside the orphanage with soldiers, and Bandage and Hood have already jumped in the back of one of them. The girl then has another episode and the sheep is now climbing out of the well. Okay, you're gonna call me crazy, but just hear me out, okay? I think there's something wrong with this girl. The vehicle you're in crashes and you have to shoot this Brook Horse with this cannon to explore any further. As you near the horse's body, you see it sink into the depths. Shit, it's definitely dead. A ginormous battleship blocks your path, looking gorgeous. These graphics are stunning. You see this really long whale blocking the path, and I want you to guess what you must do next if you want to progress.
If you say go diving underwater to get the eye of the brook horse to place in the whale's eye socket so that then it could come back to life and move out of the way, then I'm not surprised. That was literally my first guess. You're not impressing anyone, dumbass.
I love their little diving suits. They're so cute, I might cry.
You traverse past the swimming people. I'm not calling them boomers.
And then you find a nice little gap between these towering buildings that lead to a place the kids recognize. There's a shortcut to the well for a second again, and as you walk down this hallway, the girl is really struggling. The others wait, and we see the sheep climbing out the well, and as it cuts back, she starts throwing up that sheep.
I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about this girl.
Bucket and Hood run ahead, but as we walk through, we see that sheep dragging Hood away into this little archway, and we hear the sounds of bones crunching and flesh squelching as he eats our friend.
I have so much to say. I will get to it eventually, I promise.
You follow the lamb out, and we see explosions everywhere as we walk into a trench, and by just following this path, you encounter a soldier who proceeds to shoot himself in the head, and other soldiers behind him do the same. One even pulling the pin on a grenade as he sees us. You dodge machine guns, and then the sheep, actually known as the Lamb God, gives chase and kills Bucket too. Bandage runs off, and you make your way past the soldiers trying to take you out with them. You see Bandage again, and as they open the door, you already know what's going to happen. The Lamb God squeezes through and grows arms to scoop Bandage up and then jump through the wall.
Every single one of your friends that you spent the entire game saving is dead.
You find a soldier on the piano in a little bit. We will get back to this scene. You spend a chunk of the game evading a sniper who takes shots at you every time you're out in the open. You get another look at the Lamb God who can't stop growing legs. You sneak past the Lamb God again, and you can get your revenge on the sniper. You walk across the battlefield where you see soldiers mindlessly and aimlessly sauntering back from. You then take control of a tank. Oh my fucking god, what game are we playing? As you smash through buildings, you find a lonely chair.
I miss you.
You then have to escape the Lamb God and fire at it to slow it down, all whilst flares and explosions fly overhead in the background. You take some final shots at the Lamb God and you assume it's dead, but as the boy peeks over to check, he gets eaten too. The Lamb God sinks back down again and begins to grow and grow into this mass of body parts, limbs and flesh 50 times its previous size. You jump away to try to get to safety, but you find yourself trapped with no other place to go. You see the Lamb God with its soulless stare and writhing, disgusting tongue. The girl lifts her lantern and the Lamb God wriggles down its own body mass to eat the girl too. You see a flashback of the kids doing a blood pact and all cutting their palms. You awake inside the Lamb God with a plethora of items and set pieces seen in the trenches. And as the kids yell out, seemingly in there with you too, you follow a slowly revealing path until you make it to a house where the other kids uninvitingly wander in as they spot you without waiting. As you walk in, you see a ring of 5 rabbits drawn on the floor, which was shown in the movie theater in the first chapter, and an actual dead one is there too. The girl looks at it and feels its heartbeat. The doors shut and clattering noises of movement are heard around the little barn. After a cut to black, you hear the sound of a crowbar hitting you, and you see the kids dragging the girl away in a bag. Her head still sticking out of it, she can see everything happening. They drag you to the well. Hood holds a knife and Bucket holds the dead rabbit. The crowd of sheep in the background begin to move closer and closer to the kids, and they start to stand up. They block sight of the kids eventually and start looking up and bleating as if in triumph. And the game ends there.
What the fuck?
I'm just kidding, there's another scene of the kids looking down at the well without the girl, and then a shot of the girl down there. The same well the sheep was in. And then she rises for a second and is slammed back into the ground. Okay, but why?
Part 2.
It's going to be a bit before I'm able to explain why the girl was lifted up in that scene, so bear with me. The island and the war-torn areas on it we travel to are all tied together in a string of devastating famine and drought, until the well overflowed and caused a flood. Yeah, that kind of happened in the post-credit scene, I forgot to mention that. Spoilers, by the way. The war going on, realistically speaking, could have happened at any point on the timeline, maybe long before the famine and actually being the reason it came about and continuing on with no tangible end. Maybe during the famine as a fight for resources broke out, culminating in this ultimately pointless but maybe necessary for survival disguised ploy that men use just as an excuse to kill mindlessly.
Shooting at anything that moves in an attempt to end another life so they can instead die a slow death of starvation or thirst with dignity, honor and glory story, fighting for a dying nation but fundamentally prolonging the inevitable, fighting to be remembered by a forgotten world. However, this slow death isn't preferable to most of the soldiers, so as we see so often in the final chapter, they take the only aspect of their life they have any control over into their own hands: how long it lasts. The lamb god might be a metaphor for the people at the top profiting off the misery of others.
Seeing bodies on the floor as progress, leeching off all they've given to use as leverage for their own growing empire, sucking the world dry of everything people hold dear to satiate their unending hunger for more, showing instantly the lengths and the hunger they have to be on top, no matter the cost or who gets in their way.
This selfishness and power resulting in this individual gaining unparalleled control over the world with everything they could ask for, whilst the poor suffer the consequences of their actions.
These people now at the top would have eventually had that final push that puts them over the edge and in complete and total power, successfully wringing the earth out of all it had, leaving those beneath them unable to fight back or do anything, leaving death as the final and only outcome, but still serving purely as a way to prop the highest even higher up. Wait, isn't this supposed to be the story section? None of that is what the game is actually about at all. It doesn't mean any of that. But this just goes to show how the lack of linear and straightforward storytelling where the developers hold your hand through each story beat could get a lot more across with so many different possibilities and interpretations of symbolism or hidden meanings, and I find that so beautiful. But I also just kind of wrote all that because I hate rich people and far-right assholes, and I saw good metaphors for them here. The war and famine part was true, I'll stay focused for now.
The world you're in faced a famine till the well overflowed and flooded everything, and war broke out. Before or after the flood, we don't know, but presumably before. What we do know is that there was a lot of cult activity going on around this time. The kids doing a blood oath and sacrificing the girl, throwing her down the well? But why? I think they did this whilst the famine and drought was initially going on, but they were manipulated by adults and cult leaders to perform this heinous act, unaware of the severity of what they were actually doing. The leaders disguising this act as a good thing, something that maybe their gods would accept and thus bless them with a bountiful harvest and restore water and peace. A wolf in sheep's clothing, both in promise and as people themselves. The cultists and leaders being represented by the sheep here could also just mean how they mindlessly follow what they believe and think they know.
No rational thinking going on at all.
They must have indoctrinated the children in the orphanage, hence why we see these candles lit up around that same sacrificial stone we see in the barn. Now, plastered across so much of the marketing of Reanimal was a phrase following the lines of "traverse through hell together."
And obviously this place seems like a hell, it's awful, but what if it is hell?
Throughout the game we can find these coffins, each one showing one of our main characters dying in different ways. The boy was hung, Hood was shot, Bandage stepped on a mine, Bucket was pushed off a ledge, but the girl doesn't have one showing her dying, only a rabbit that runs away. But we know how the girl dies. She was sacrificed, like the dead rabbit we see in the barn at first. In the post-credit scene, we see the well overflowing, so we can assume that this sacrifice worked in some way. It brought back water, but just too much. Still bringing damage and death, and the war for resources continues. Nothing was solved. All the kids died shortly after the sacrifice, maybe hunted down by the cult leaders.
Probably believing the kids did something wrong. Why are we swimming in dirty water and corpses and not riches and food to satiate us forever? The kids messed this up. This is their fault. They brought this fate upon us all.
The kids died and are now in hell as punishment for what they did, which is supported by cut lines in the game, of which there was a lot of, one of which was the boy answering why they think everyone was there, which in the actual game itself wasn't answered. He says it was punishment, further backed up by a bunch of scrapped parts of the game that they released, one of which was a girl defending her brother and dragging the other kids to hell, what the fuck? And another with a sixth kid who was a scrapped character who all the kids supposedly left for dead, but to which someone responds with, "We all died." Which is the most blunt and in-your-face line of dialogue I have ever heard in my life. I'm writing this segment just after Tarzia released all this footage, but this scene just kind of completely goes back on any sort of theories people might have had by just revealing to us so unsatisfyingly, directly, the entire mystery, and any other interpretation of the game's story are just completely thrown in the garbage because they're obviously, that just can't be. I know this isn't canon, but it feels way too on the nose for Tarzia to have such a major switch up afterwards. This might have just been a placeholder text and might have not been the final line they had planned for this scene, but at the very least this must have served as a blueprint for what they had planned for this scene. So it must be true, at least to some extent. Segment over, back to me talking about the story again, but I might be wrong. We see the girl lifted up, contorting just like the lamb in the well. The girl was reincarnated as a lamb, which happens to grow more and more anytime she is spoken to by the other children. Her memories all come flooding back and she remembers what they did to her, this rage of betrayal building up as she recollects herself with each verbal interaction. Remember, she was awake for what they did to her. She saw all of it happen. She knew what was happening to her and who was doing it. But she forgot most of that, only remembering bits and bobs. But she remembers more over the course of the game. This anger she has manifesting itself into this lamb, the lamb god.
The name also has some significance, perhaps with how the cult leaders would have been doing the sacrifice for a god. This animal, a lamb, seen purely as a sacrificial being for a higher power, now being that higher power.
The girl's anger represented by this lamb by how she was viewed and seen purely as an item of sacrifice, a gear in these cult leaders' faulty belief-fueled machine. Now the tragedy of this fate turning into this being of revenge and hatred for the world that never saw her as a person but merely a sack of meat to metaphorically fertilize their dead crops and feed the island's soul-sucked people. The girl was found in the middle of the ocean because she rose with the flood from the well. The boy says, "I thought you were dead," now with this new meaning because he knew she was dead. They killed her. Them being in hell would also explain the monsters. Fragments of the children's troubled past have been used as inspiration for their character design and for the monsters that now torment them, which has some disgusting implications for characters like the Sniffer and how he is around Hood. Their journey is also described as a desperate search for hope and redemption in the direst of circumstances. They're just going to have to relive all this pain and torture forever, ultimately all the kids getting eaten by the lamb god and the girl somehow finding the barn again and getting sacrificed. This cycle repeats. They are stuck in hell, reliving the worst experiences of their lives, exaggerated into these mutated and horrible monsters that hunt and stalk them in each chapter.
And honestly, I don't know how the secret ending comes into this. I wish I had an answer. I feel stupid even deciding to make a video on this game I'm obsessed with while still not having all the answers. Even with the answers I have, still having plot holes and being a bit dodgy. Okay, I don't know if I've said this already, but let me just say now, don't take everything I've said as gospel. This is all just my interpretation of what I've seen and just mixed and matched theories I've seen from the community as well. I'm aware that not everything I brought up in this theory could be true. Your perception of the game will very likely differ to mine. Dude, I didn't even want to believe the they're in hell theory. That was one of the first concepts I heard about the game's story, and I thought it was fucking stupid. Same with the time loop concept, which they already did in Little Nightmares 2. And even if I do think I believe this story, I do kind of want another route for it, or like another confirmed sort of narrative. Maybe I do just prefer the idea that this world that we see in the game is just supposed to be our world, but corrupted with these hellish and evil monsters, which is the concept that I like so much in Little Nightmares. A part of me feels like Little Nightmares partly lost some of that mystery and suspended belief that this is our world when they suddenly went to these great lengths to over-explain everything. Okay, so they're in the spiral, which is a collection of words like the multiverse. Call me crazy. I am not a big fan of the multiverse shtick in horror media. It really just screams, this is our way to make spin-offs and have an excuse to keep the story going on forever and ever in many different ways, forever and ever. Which would partly explain the sudden burst in Little Nightmares content announced in the last year. And let me say, I am not complaining about that though. There's a podcast, DLC for the third game, a VR game, a stop motion project, more of the podcast, comics, books. But I also kind of want all of them. So I can't criticize the actual products themselves. Plus, most of them haven't even released yet. So neither can I really make comments on the quality of the products either. Wait, isn't this supposed to be the story segment? Sorry, I know I have been getting off topic a bit. But to go back to the whole thing about my theory potentially and probably being complete bullshit, that actually shows how this storytelling can have so much potential and Tarzia utilizes it to such a phenomenal extreme. I cannot remember the last time I was left pondering about every element of a piece of fictional media's story and what it means, as opposed to non-fictional media, which I find myself wondering about a lot more. Reanimal never holds your hand with this story. You've got to pay attention if you want to find any sort of connections. Dude, when I was nearing the end of the game, I still didn't know what was going on. Most of the game's story seems narrow until you reach the ending of the game, and suddenly all these other portions of the game expand with these new possibilities and what they could mean. The ending recontextualizes the entire game regardless of whether you found it underwhelming or confusing. The ending is so clearly crucial to every other part of this story, with the visuals and tension all building up to this hell of a fucking climax, and it's so well executed and still leaves space for it to be expanded on, which leaves me super excited for the DLC. Now we move on to the portion of the video where I mindlessly gush about different parts of the game that I love. I will say so good about 50 times and start most of my sentences with I love how. I'm saying this so you know I'm self-aware. I know my vocabulary isn't expansive enough. Just shut up and please let me write. Leave me alone, please. Also, I have something to say about almost every single chapter and part of the game. Once again, I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing this for me. But I'm also doing it for money. I'm expecting a £1,000 check from Tazia Studios, pretty pleased with a cherry on top. Oh my god, what a start to the game.
Sniffer's section is undoubtedly the longest. His section in total is about an hour, but if you're me and my friend, 3 hours. But it does such a magnificent job at setting the tone for everything to come, as I've mentioned before. Tazia always nails the first chapter in their games too, they never miss. His design is so crazy. It looks like something wearing a skin suit, which would add up given he literally makes and tends to them. And also he can just teleport through corpses, which is such a bizarre but unnerving thing that he can just do. That first chase with him as well, fucking phenomenal. Running on the trains is such an intense and crazy visual. I love it.
Also, when Hood grabs the boy, I didn't realize you were supposed to help her. My dumbass just ran away and abandoned him, dude. The gas station scene, like I said, is a contender for the best chase scene in the game.
That build-up is amazing. Having the camera slowly zoom out to reveal the skin suit slithering down the buildings and towards us as we fill up our gas canister. We can see them getting closer, but we need to finish filling it up. We can't move until we do. We know as soon as we see that guy holding the gas canister that the sniffer will probably come crawling out of him. And it's that anticipation for his eventual appearance, combined with the already present threat of the skin suits, that's just done so well. I hit my microphone, I'm gonna kill myself. But even though it's a contender for the best chase, it earns that title purely through spectacle. The chase itself is disappointingly easy without providing a strong enough climax to the suspense built up. The skin suits are super easy to dodge. You can often walk right over them and avoid their attacks without even trying. That plus the sniffer isn't even a problem. He walks so slowly and I don't think I've seen one person get caught by him in this scene.
So all that anticipation for when we'll see him pop out of the body doesn't even have a proper payoff because he has no reason to be there.
But I love the car alarms going off and the skin suits coming out of the trucks is also just really good, but that doesn't save the slightly underwhelming gameplay. I still love the chase scene despite its flaws. I can recognize where it falters slightly, but that is not going to stop me from loving it. I do wish, however, that they took more advantage of the sniffer's ability to travel through the bodies.
They mostly use it as an explanation for how he gets to place, but I would have loved it if they use it more for the horror elements of the game other than just being a disgusting thing that he can do. I'm sure this isn't an original idea, but could you imagine an area where there's like a bunch of bodies and you have no idea which one the sniffer will pop out of, but then he tries to get you by reaching out from each one of them in quick succession. Actually, Tazia, just hire him already. I can't give you these amazing ideas for free, dude. Tazia also does visual and background storytelling so subtly and perfectly, it is astonishing.
This is mostly present with the sniffer's portion of the game, with him being the only monster that is vaguely human excluding the soldiers. It's obvious that there's something wrong with him, the way his skin looks on his body, and the way he walks with his messed up little foot there. It's obvious he's some corrupted human, or not even one at all.
The concept is so interesting and Tazia builds on it so much with every little place you travel to.
Because that would show the insane lengths he's gone to survive on this island. It only took one deranged individual to kill hundreds of people and take their skin just to get by. He feasts on anything that moves, all humanity lost, only a pure boundless instinct to do whatever he can to survive. He can't even remain in his own skin, he's so far from being human now.
But that's what's scariest. The idea that this thing could be human.
He owns this island. Every single place is deserted other than the skin suits and the cinema with crowds of people who have to be dead. These people we can assume he's placed there himself. Since he's so vaguely human, Tazia shows how he evolves in his attempts to catch you. First he attempts to chase you on foot, which doesn't work, and then he tries to lure us in with an ice cream truck.
He's very smart. And strategic too. That's why he crosses the road without looking left or right. And since he's the monster we spend the most time with, I adore the opportunity to beat the shit out of him at the end.
Forgot to mention how stunning the lighting from the ice cream truck made the train scene look, like holy shit. The Skin Forest 2 was a beyond amazing scene, so visually disturbing and jarring. That part had some real tension and anticipation. I thought they were about to start moving down the trees, that would have been insane.
But I'm kinda glad they didn't. They just let the scene stand on their own. Not every scene has to be a stealth or chase sequence.
Tazia sees and understands this too and really emphasizes it in scenes like these where it works best and provides a great opportunity to explore and appreciate each individual detail. And this scene is one of many where it's clear you're supposed to stop and take in your surroundings. They focus a lot on the cinematics here and really veered into the experience part of the game. This game is a spectacle to behold and they manage to balance gameplay with that 99% of the time.
Which brings you to my next point. The dynamic camera in this game is so fucking good, oh my god.
In Little Nightmares 1 and 2, Tarzia were restricted to a 2.5D style. You would only travel left to right, which made gameplay fairly straightforward, but allowed them lots of opportunities to utilize the depth and perspective with it being so permanently fixed. In Reanimal, they changed that completely. Most of the scenes in the trailer you might assume are exaggerated immensely to draw people in, using cinematic shots which aren't how the game would typically be seen. No. The game really is that cinematic, mostly.
I have never in my life seen a game utilize the camera, such a fundamental component of every game ever, the way Reanimal does.
You might think that having the game be solely in third person would take away from the horror experience, but it wouldn't be the same without it. You can't do this shit in first person. It also surprisingly isn't difficult to keep track of where your character is at any given time. The cuts aren't too jarring or difficult to follow at all. It fixes the camera in specific positions even more than Little Nightmares, but uses that to its advantage to create such jaw-dropping sequences that rely purely on the visuals and how you're seeing everything. Especially that one scene with the mother. One of the best shots in the entire game, don't even joke, lad. The mother overall, I think, had some of the weakest sections, other than the chain together sequence. The spider kids aren't really a threat at all, they are just killed by spamming attack, and they sometimes crawl on the wall.
Oh, so that's why they're called that. See, now it makes sense. Why can they do that?
There's some shockingly bright outside areas in some chases here, which are really beautiful actually, and don't take away from the fear factor.
But there's a lack of nuance in the encounters with the mother, and not too much is done to truly make her a standout character, considering how little they utilize her abilities uniquely. She just has a few really good chase scenes, but we don't get the same kind of personality with her like we see with the Sniffer, which is what makes a character like him so terrifying. You only get about 15 minutes with her, including her final boss fight, which I do find fairly disappointing, and I would have loved if they expanded more on her and how she lives around the orphanage.
It comes right after the Pelican sequence too, so the pacing can be very off-putting, coming off of that very long first chapter that focuses solely on the Sniffer, and then moving on to these two chapters that combined take up less time to beat than said first chapter.
Speaking of that Pelican sequence, that chase segment is really fucking good.
I love the seagulls diving into the ground. It's like Finding Nemo turned up to 1,000. I love the cruel and unusual transition to the Warzone environment after the orphanage, because why are they going to an orphanage to recruit more soldiers? It doesn't make sense. But I think the strange nature of it plays into the unforgiving and evil nature of war itself. It doesn't choose its victims, it takes whoever it can, either taking people to kill them or to just use them to kill others. And then it's such a smooth transition to the bunker, back to this area we're already familiar with.
But before I continue, the bunker was the bane of my fucking existence on first playthrough. We first missed a code on the boxes, which was our mistake, but then we guessed the code and accidentally get the secret code. We then killed ourselves because we still didn't notice the code, and then we soft locked ourselves and tried fixing it for about half an hour. We managed to solve our problem eventually, but it took such a long time. Sorry, unnecessary tangent, let's continue.
I love getting to explore new areas at later portions of a game that were previously unreachable. I love getting to shoot the Brook Horse dude, fuck that guy, and I cannot understate how phenomenal the Brook Horse chase is.
This is a true contender for the best chase in the game. If you said this was the best chase, I would not be inclined to disagree at all.
The diving section overall is just super well done, although a bit too short. I think it did all it had to do, but the chase is just on another level. I love the hand holding onto the wall before you see it. It's revealed just when you might be wondering what you're going to encounter down there. And I adore the slow speed you run at. In Little Nightmares 2, the most tense moments were with the Thin Man, who slowed you down the closer he was to you, which is probably my favorite mechanic to create such an overwhelming sense of urgency to leave and get out as quick as you can, contrasted by the speed you're at completely working against that.
It creates the illusion that every move you make must be perfect, that any mistake you make would result in certain death.
And all that applies so well to this chase section. The Brook Horse travels much more confidently through the water than you, purely being held back by its size, and the best part by far is the lighting, because oh my god, it is mortifying. They give you a little sparkler thing that emits this glowing blue light around you, and when you have it on during the chase, you can see the horse's face ease in and out of the light. It's like the whole movement of the horse was designed around this one mechanic. I love the shot of the massive battleship too. Like, this game's graphics are so good. I overall just love the war environment too. Like, long before you even get to the war chapter, you can tell that something bad has happened to this place, excluding the monsters. There are frequent hints at a war going on. You can literally find bombshells in a secret room in the first chapter.
And then when you get to the chapter, everything feels more human, but in a very bleak and dystopian way.
Like, humans don't often see monsters like these, but there is still war in the real world, and then we're almost immediately greeted by the hopelessness and brutality war always presents. They didn't hold back at all with the soldiers, and that first soldier is a horrifying visual, dude.
And it's the way the kids are all forced into this area and the unforgiving nature of the war.
The soldiers shooting at you shows that they're only there to kill, not to serve a purpose or fight for a cause. They are there purely because they were given weapons and free will. It's a sickening section overall, and it never once truly stops, even when it seems like it has. It sends a very anti-war message, which I dig entirely. But I have to talk about the glaring and obvious star of the show here, the Lamb God.
I'm going to focus on the first scene of the Land God because I have a lot to say. Words cannot describe the pure, overwhelming fear I felt when I first saw this scene.
It's the most disturbing scene in the game. More than that, the most disturbing scene I think Tasia has ever made. Bouncing off of one crazy scene to another so flawlessly, making both scenes stand out so competently on their own, and still holding up their impact even with the second scare coming immediately after the other, not being nullified by the previous scene, if anything, only improving it.
This is the Ozymandias sequence of the game. If Ozymandias was a 2-minute section in one episode. I know that seems extreme, but it serves as a climax to the build-up that we've had for this sheep creature. This creature that's been this mystery hinted at for most of the game, and then it shows what it's capable of at its weakest. There's another element in the game that I think makes this work so well, but it might just be a far-fetched reach on my end. However, if it wasn't, I'd feel bad discrediting the developers by labeling it as unintentional. It's like saying, yeah, they did this very clever thing, but the developers are fucking stupid, so it was obviously accidental. Which is not at all the point I'm getting at, okay?
But I'm thinking about the pelican chase from earlier, the shortest segment of the game.
This pelican got less than 5 minutes of screen time, even if you watched it fly all the way to the lighthouse.
But the chase scene showed the pelican fumbling around, clearly very incompetent, only being a threat at all due to its size. Was it not 20 times your size, it wouldn't be able to do anything. It's literally just some bullshit with wings.
It falls down the spiral staircase, it can't fly confidently. The only other thing that made it mildly intimidating was the barrage of seagulls it had at its disposal, all willing to fly into the ground to kill us.
The point I'm getting at is that the Lamb God, at this point, is in the exact same situation.
From what little we see of the Lamb God before it pushes through the doors, we see it drag itself on the ground, trying to stand up, and when it does, it falls over. You naturally assume it's almost completely incompetent. It runs out the doors, but it's easy to see that it's trying to keep its footing. It's going really fast, but it's like it's running down a hill. That, plus you've seen the lamb stronger and larger already. The lamb we see at first doesn't even match its second form in the well. So in the back of our mind, we take note of this. We know it's going to get worse, so it's something we'll have to watch out for later. Coming off of that extreme with the girl puking up a fucking full-sized sheep, you assume it'll tone it down for a bit before picking things up again with the lamb later on.
You naturally let your guard down, even if just for a second.
Only to get shot in the chest a moment later, seeing the lamb, even in its weakest form, drag away one of your friends and eat them.
You don't even get to see it clearly, you only see a silhouette lit up by the flickering red lights that accompany the lamb in most of its scenes.
I've gone this far, not even mentioning the traumatizing scream Hood lets out whilst you can hear their bones being crunched.
The sound design and soundtrack just complement this scene in such a sickly way.
The sting that plays just before the scream almost sounds like a noise a lamb could make, and it perfectly sets in the reality of how drastic the situation is and heightens the impact such a considerable amount.
Despite this though, my dumbass didn't think that maybe Hood was dead for good.
Like, a delusional part of me was wondering if Hood was okay and if we'd see her again. But then I thought about it for another 2 more seconds. That didn't stop me from asking whether we'd see them again anytime it crossed my mind for even a second.
Oh! Are you gonna see our friends?
Fucking masterpiece scene, and the rest of the chapter holds up so well to the tension it builds, it's astonishing.
The first soldier shooting himself is so out of nowhere and jaw-dropping. The flashing red and orange lights overhead with the explosions, the atmosphere is overwhelming, and you feel that hopelessness of war. And each soldier dying one way or another perfectly emphasizes that feeling in such a depressing way. And the scene in the hospital where, even in a place where they're supposed to be getting better, they still pull the pin on their grenades and attempt to kill us. All the interactions with the Lamb God afterwards are relentlessly intense as your group slowly dwindles down one by one, and with each encounter the Lamb God evolves and becomes more and more like this mutated beast. It's like Shin Godzilla, just this being that keeps on growing and getting stronger and stronger, and there's nothing that can really stop it at all.
And the war backdrop for all of this is so fitting. They gave this chapter everything they had, and it's so impressive.
In the chase scenes, the war backdrop always adds to the intensity of the situation and really emphasizes the hopelessness of war to match the events of the chapter involving us and our friends.
Like, even if we did defeat the Lamb God and escape, what do we achieve? All of our friends are dead and we're still stuck in a starving, war-torn world. The war was going on before the Lamb God, why would it suddenly stop without it? It leaves you with your only incentive being to survive. You can't save anyone, it's over, it's pointless. This selfish nature of simply saving yourself and doing nothing else is justified though, because these are children. What else can they do against this fucking thing other than...
And I think that's another point of interest where the horror in this game derives from, being the fact that children are going through all of this. This obviously isn't new to Tarsier Studios, Little Nightmares is exactly the same.
But Reanimal makes Little Nightmares look tame, so the horror of children experiencing all of this is amplified tenfold. In Little Nightmares, the monster often reflected childhood fears or just characters children would be familiar with and transforming them in this ghoulish way.
And there's something to be said about the general fears of adults children can face. With children being so much smaller than them, it can be an intimidating world, and especially with neglectful or terrible parents. And Little Nightmares exaggerates that sort of world with its characters and concepts, but still being rooted in those undertones of childhood fears and mistreatment. The teacher is a prime example of how the monster design reflects childhood fears. The fear of teachers always lurking and watching their class constantly. The fear that nothing you do will go unnoticed, and to match that fear, the teacher has her neck extend to extreme lengths, really honing in on the idea of always being watched and seen, as she can get to any nook and cranny to find you. Nowhere is truly safe.
Reanimal doesn't exactly follow this. They throw inconceivable horrors at you in a world where you're actually your normal size, but that would only mean that you're really short and young. So you could imagine the kids going through this are under or around the age of 12, which is still insane to think of.
I don't know if I...
I skimmed over this scene in the story recap, but it is probably one of my favorite scenes in the entire game. It's one of the game's defining moments, and it's easy to see why. It is so undeniably perfect.
Chances are, if you've seen anything about Reanimal, you've probably seen this scene somewhere. It comes in the middle of the war chapter. By this point, all your friends are dead. It seems all hope is lost. But you find a soldier playing the piano. It's slow, it isn't some grand, awe-inspiring piece. It's like each chord is thought out so carefully before it's played. You can see the soldier's hands search for the piano for the right note. You've seen the toll this war has taken on the soldiers, so you can imagine this soldier was wandering throughout these houses, same as you, and happened to find this piano, still completely intact amongst the ruins of the buildings. The chances of finding a perfectly working piano seem impossible. This is probably the only remaining one on the island. The soldier lays down his weapon, resting it by the piano. He leaves his drink on top. He might have a sip in a second. It might be his last. He sits down, the moonlit sky shining through the destroyed remains of a wall behind the piano. He knows the piano wouldn't be quiet. He knows he'd be heard. He knows this might be the last thing he ever does. But in a hopeless world like this, what better thing is there to do? Kill more? Shoot for an invisible cause? What else is there? This single scene creates such a simple but strong unnamed character from almost nothing, just a piano and a song. The file name for the song also is named Improv. Even how the song was made just by someone sitting down and playing it feeds into this human nature that makes it seem so tragic and tangible, but just for a second there's hope. There's a bit of brightness when everything else is gone. The soldier just saw a piano and decided to sit down and play. He didn't have any idea what, he just pressed notes, whatever he thought sounded right. No one else ever would sit down and come up with this exact song on the spot. You can learn the song and what he plays, but this is ultimately a piece that cannot be recreated. It's pure, it's human. This man, knowing he's probably in his last moments, just doing what he loves, but for a second we forget that. We watch him play. He moves so carefully and slowly, it's like he's made peace with himself. The world is unfair, but he's taking what little he's been given. We quickly take him back to the reality of the game, this unfair nature of everything, how mercy is purely a concept and death waits for no one. We don't even get time to take in the previous scene. The sniper immediately moves on to trying to shoot us after he takes out the soldier. It's such a well-made and simple scene, leeching onto the human nature of the game that is so lost in every creature and character we encounter to weaponize our empathy for all these soldiers. We realize that despite their innate need to kill us, they're still human. They just want to survive, but their basic empathy has disappeared completely. They only know to kill, and it's such a tragic concept in the context of the game that they contrast with this display of what has been lost, giving us a brief glimpse before snatching it away right before our eyes.
The war presented to us is unforgiving and evil, matching the main antagonist of this game. The game tackles this war in such an unfiltered and gruesome way, still remaining impactful despite the crazy things the game has shown already, succeeding so well at accomplishing a frightening yet layered environment, whilst balancing the main story and making it fit in so well.
The cinematography too is just too perfect. I am in awe at the colours the final chase with the Lamb God is. It's just beyond perfect. I love how much teamwork is focused on with the tank gameplay. That's such a fun mechanic, showing the focus on making the two-player experience really enjoyable, which they very much accomplished.
I cannot get over that final shot of the Lamb God. Like, I don't know how you come up with this, and much less how you even make it a reality. Like, this is completely insane.
And then with the final little segment, I like the mix of what the two players have to do. Like, despite only the girl being present in the lamb, whoever's playing as the boy has to be the one to call out. Even though that took me a while to realize, I did like it.
Am I able to do something? It's me.
It's you.
I have to call.
And swapping who's playing after the girl is tied up is evil. It completely distances the two characters who were completely inseparable up until now. Making the two players play a different section of the ending is just such a good idea.
Okay, I've kind of like written this part in after I've written everything else, you know, I've just like made the entire video and now I'm just adding this part on the end because I feel like I can. But I want to talk about the title of the video, unless I've changed it again, how Reanimal almost kills your hope as you go through it. Throughout the game, as you are tasked with finding your friends, in each section of the game there are highs and lows during the journey of finding them. You find Hood and you do escape with her, but quickly afterwards she is taken by the sniffer and you have to get her back. You find Bandage, but mere moments after seeing them, they're taken by the Pelican. You find Bucket, but he's just too far out of reach and you lose him once. But after finding him, he's yet again separated from you guys until you get him back. No matter what you face, it is almost promised that you can overcome it by this pattern the game follows. You have this hope when you find your friend, where despite losing them in each chapter after initially finding them, it is very clear that in each situation, mostly, that you will find them again. You still have this hope that all will be okay, and you obviously want these characters to have a happy ending, because they're children. What could they have done to deserve being hunted down by monsters of their nightmares? And you eventually do have all your friends and you get to stay together for a bit. Just long enough for you to get comfortable and feel safe having them all. But then this anomaly that's been brewing in the background of the entire game truly enters the cast of monsters and completely flips the unwritten rules of the game upside down. It's quite clear at this point that Hood is dead. I don't think it's possible to survive this, but obviously I wouldn't know from experience. And just for a second, you lose a tinge of hope. We've lost one of our friends, are we gonna make it ourselves? It might be obvious what the final chapter might hold in store for your other friends. Personally, I called it after Hood's death. Once the game had shown that they are very willing to explicitly kill the kids, it became quite clear that they wouldn't hesitate doing the same with the others. That didn't stop me from being completely distraught each time one of the kids faced their inevitable fate that I completely expected each and every time. What I didn't expect was for them to then kill the boy. Once this cutscene started going on for more than 10 seconds, it had already built up too much anticipation for the Lamb God to come back. It felt obvious that it would return, but I was still caught off guard and didn't actually expect the boy to die too, because I had hope. I thought if our other friends couldn't make it, maybe we could at least. Not to mention that playing this game two-player influenced this in some way.
And by influence in some way, I mean me and my friend swapped controllers during the tank part, so when the boy died, we thought my friend had died and I was supposed to be playing as a girl, but then in actuality I had died, and then that just resulted in us dying over and over and over again at the final scene. It took us 5 minutes to notice this.
Wait, I think you can do it. I think it's
can do
you.
it. It's me.
Yeah, no, it is.
Me. Switch controllers.
That makes perfect sense, actually.
Is it often that in a two-player game you'd expect one of the characters to be fucking killed? Like, out of the game entirely? I didn't expect that in the slightest. But even with the lost hope of making it out with all your friends, it then turned into this hope that maybe you could at least just make it out. Something came to my mind that I never once considered, which I've already brought up. What would be next? Sure, we want to leave, but then what? Where would we go? There's still an ongoing war, there's still an unstoppable force roaming around the city. It's not like any of these places we've traveled to have been free of the effects of this war, these creatures, the famine, or the flood. Escaping this situation would only lead to encountering another bad one, and it's when you realize this that the game becomes well and truly hopeless. And the game even tries to enforce this feeling long before the land god makes an appearance. The backdrop of a war had always been prevalent, but it's just something that can be easy to ignore before those final chapters. It shows these hints that there's something bigger going on, but the vile mutated animals take priority of our attention. The final chapter starts off with her dying, and if that killed your spirits just a little bit, then please don't worry, we have soldiers killing themselves just afterwards to help put a spring in your step. Considering these are the only living adults we see in the game, we don't even get a chance to feel a bit of safety thinking there's supposed mature grown-ups up here and they might just protect us. The first soldier we see already has that gun against his head, unfazed at the sight of children. He doesn't care if they see this. Completely dehumanized. Nothing could bring sense into him. He has no character or feelings. This war has taken away anything that could have been left in this dystopia from all the monsters, leaving you with nothing but a pointless will to survive, which also seems impossible. Any potential way out is stripped away from us in the most brutal way possible, and yet we're only pressured to continue further, and it's as we do that everyone we worked so hard to save is lost one by one, until the game eventually turned into progressing for the sake of progressing. As the Lamb God grows and becomes more and more powerful, even as we shoot it in a tank, nothing can undo the damage it's done, so you hope for some miracle. You aren't moving forward in the game to reach a specific goal. Any hope of achieving our previous ones is now long gone and it only gets worse. There's nothing to wish for anymore, it's over. And just when all hope is lost, you learn what happened in the first place and how this all started. The whole game wraps back around and you realize that this all happened because of the characters you spent the game around. Not including the girl who has the purest of pure souls. And it's because of these characters that the flood started and intensified the war and destruction of the different islands we travel to. And it's because of them that the lamb is there in the first place. From the first time we see it, it was because of them. And then they all suffer because of it. They unknowingly dug their own grave. This ending recontextualizes the entire game in how it all started and seals the fate of the kids from the start, making the entire game hopeless from the very beginning for those who finish the game, whilst gradually building towards that climax and ending in the final chapter, still making it feel hopeless in the moment for those playing.
Okay, so by the time I'm recording this, it's like July 15th, and I'm like almost done with the video. I'm just like doing this extra bit at the end because recently they have added like a bunch of achievements to Reanimal, like a bunch of extra ones. And all these achievements are to do with DLC, which they'll be releasing soon, or at least like one part of it. And you're probably wondering, how do I even know this? And that's because the first achievement that I saw is related to completing the DLC, because it says so. So managed to decode that little clue there. And there's also just like a bunch of other stuff that they sort of reveal there. They reveal that there's going to be 2 new characters that you're playing as, or maybe new, I don't know for sure. The soldiers are returning, which is very interesting, and also the spider kids, which is a little bit lame because I never cared for them. Like, of all the monsters you're going to bring back, you're going to bring back the shitty lame ones, right? Like what are we doing? Although you kind of kill all the other monsters, so you know, it kind of makes sense. I can't blame them for that, actually. I think that's all I have to say about like the DLC. I'm gonna talk about it when it comes out, 100%. But like, I just wanted like put here some video essays that I've watched on Reanimal that I also think are really good and I would highly recommend. These are video essays that like go deeper into certain aspects of Reanimal as opposed to being like a glorified recap. That is shade, by the way. That is very targeted. I'm not looking at the camera, by the way. I'm looking at myself in the video. I'm sorry, I have a really bad, I do that all the time. But yeah, that is very targeted, okay? I have big beef with that video. 1.2 million views? What do you mean? What do you mean? It's a glorified recap. What are we doing? I can elaborate a lot more on that because, I'm sorry, it really pisses me off. Why is that like the most viewed Reanimal video essay. I don't want to say much on it because that's not what this video is about, but I just want to say it's the type of video that you watch once and then you never interact with the game again. And the writing is very good in that. Like, I was captivated the entire time, but it's like a game that I already love and I know everything about already. Like, it's, I don't know, if I watched that video just as a viewer who knew nothing about Reanimal, I'd have no motivation to look further into the game at all because I feel like that they've just gone over everything in just 20 minutes. I'm getting worked up. I kind of don't need this right now. That was super unfiltered, by the way. Like, I didn't have a script that time around because I just needed to bullshit and just say whatever because these are like my last sort of thoughts that I have. So I have no idea how I'm going to edit it or how that's going to turn out. It's just going to be more bullshit. Fun. Watch Drew Gooden's video about people who want to waste your time. I'm not one of them. I don't want to do that, but I think I kind of do. Also, I'm wearing my Reanimal shirt, by the way. Oh my god, Reanimal!
I don't have any more notes than the game itself here. All in all, I think that Reanimal is, like the title suggests, a masterpiece in modern horror. Yes, it has many flaws. The pacing is really off. What do you mean the final boss has less screen time than the first boss? That doesn't make any sense at all. And maybe I am going a bit far calling this game a masterpiece, but this is all just my personal opinion. And personally, I love all the really good aspects of this game way too much to be able to call it anything but a masterpiece. Do I think you should buy the game? Well, you've just watched this video where I explain everything that happens in the game, so I think that spoils the experience a little bit, would you agree? And honestly, the game holds a £35 or $40 price tag, which, for an average of 3 to 4 hours of game time, isn't really worth it. And I hate to say that due to how much I love the game, but you could buy Lethal Company 4 times with that, and I have 100 hours on that game with only around 15 on Reanimal. And if you are going to get the game, I do think you should either wait for a sale and go all in with the DLC so you can experience those firsthand when they release, or just go all in with the deluxe version right now. And that's just due to it being better value, but I would probably wait for a sale. And I promise you, dude, play this with a friend. Playing this game with someone else just enhances the experience so much. It was great. I was probably the worst person to play this game with since I was taking this shit dead serious the entire time. But I was still having the time of my life because I was playing with the best person ever. You know who you are. But that's the end of the video. I would love to make more of these since I have so many ideas. But I would still love to keep on making videos, but don't expect frequent uploads because I'm very busy waiting for Invincible episodes. But that joke won't work because I don't think I'm going to get this video out before all the episodes in season 4 release. Episode 6 released today. If this video reaches 1 million views, I will drop out of school and make AI Crypto Bros slop content for the rest of my life. Like and subscribe to help my dream come true. Thanks guys!